Welcome to today's video. I'm Natasha of Natasha Miller Creates, and today we're picking out the theme for my February bullet journal setup. If you didn't watch my January setup, 2025 is the year where I will be letting mini brand eggs decide my theme. I have 11 different eggs in there with 11 different themes. A couple have been repeated, and I'm going to pick out to see what my theme's going to be. So far there are no rules. It's mostly just using the item as inspiration or picking a color palette based on what the item is to make it more cohesive. We're just having fun. Basically, I got tired of the pressure of picking my own theme, so I'm letting the universe pick for me. Let's see what February is going to be. February is going to be a home theme, so we're going to open this up and take a closer look at what I'm actually going to be working with. So a bit of backstory, the home theme mini egg is actually what motivated me to do this series. I saw the home mini brands egg and I didn't know what it was, so I picked it up thinking it could be fun. And it was, and it was so much fun that that's how this series came about. Okay, I need to address something here because this is absolutely ridiculous. So the last home egg that I got was a lot more cohesive. I have no idea what I'm going to do with any of this, but for what it's worth, this sideboard is a luxury piece. The coffee grinder is ultra rare. The sandwich maker is ultra rare. The fan is rare. And if we flip it over, the bento lunchbox again is rare. Now, for what it's worth, I have these lunchboxes in real life for my kids' lunches, and they are amazing. I do really enjoy them. I mean, I guess the most common theme here would be these two. So like, I could do a sandwich theme or a bento lunchbox theme. I don't know. I'm obviously drawn to the coffee grinder because it's coffee, but it's still weird. I do love that it comes in this cute little container though. That's super fun. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I was worried about what I'm gonna do with all of this random stuff. Okay. Once I calmed down and took a minute to think through my theme, I thought it would be fun to put together a high tea theme for February. Kind of romantic to tie into the whole Valentine's Day thing. So I went ahead with this concept. Since using the mini brands eggs for my theme is a work in progress, so right now there are no rules, for example, I thought it would be fun to do ratings at the end of the video. So I'll be rating my interpretation of how I incorporate the mini egg into my theme, the execution of the setup, the color palette I chose, the materials I chose to use. So in this video, I'm using Tombows, but in my last video, I used Acrylographs and oil pastels. And then I'll be giving an overall rating. So stay tuned to the end of the video to hear my thoughts, and I would actually love if you gave me your ratings as well. Again, based on interpretation, execution, color palette, materials, and then an overall rating. Let's get into February. So I started off sketching out what I wanted to do for my cover page, and I used a kneaded eraser just to lighten up the pencil lines a little bit. Since I was using Tombows, the pencil lines do show through, so I wanted to make sure I was getting rid of all the little bits of lines that was part of my sketching and wouldn't be necessary. As I mentioned, I went for a high tea theme. So teapot, teacups, I had a high tea set up with the sandwiches and the different layers of treats. I decided to include some fans in the background for decoration, and then of course a vase of flowers. Using the Tombows was super fun. I don't use them as often anymore, but being able to layer the colors and add dimension was actually a lot of fun and very easy to use. So you'll see me go in adding color and shading as I go. I'm using an Archer and Olive B5 notebook, and the paper is thick enough that going in and shading the bits and pieces doesn't result in any bleed through or warping, at least not for me. And I wasn't using that much color, and as you can see, I was just covering little bits of illustration. So it was really easy and actually a lot of fun to use again. So I think I want to be better about using my Tombows, because otherwise they're just going to go dry. So consider this your PSA to use your supplies, because they're going to go dry and not work anyway. So might as well get your money's worth and actually use them. For my color palette, I leaned into pinks and reds and browns, and then of course added a bit of green and yellow, which is the cucumber and the egg salad sandwich, but you actually don't really see that from far away. You do see it in person up close, but I don't think the camera really picked that up. It is there, and I wanted to make sure to include how I'm shading my flowers and how the flowers come to life. I thought that was really fun. For the leaves, I'm using a green, and I'm just going in and adding shading with the same color over top, since that works really well with the Tombows. They're very versatile, and I do enjoy using them. I also just love how opaque the acrylographs are, which I did put an acrylograph in this layout too, which you'll see shortly. So even though I bought the mini eggs and I'm very aware of the different themes that I have in the bag, I actually did struggle with this theme a lot. It was actually a mini brand's home theme egg that got me thinking about starting this series. And the initial egg I got that started this series was actually a really fun one with a red chair and a fruit bowl and magazines. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Let's do this. This is going to be fun. And then, of course, January, I had the MasterChef cherry cake dessert thing, which was super easy. And so when I opened this egg, as you can tell from my reaction, I was a little bit overwhelmed by the thought of turning all those random items into a theme. But here we are, and I will talk more about my ratings at the end of the video. I'm creating these fans, and they were actually really fun to draw, very easy. I'm just going in and adding the shading now, and I'm just using the same color and adding a layer of color over top to create that shading. And I thought they came out really well, and it's obvious what they are, so I was happy with that. I feel like I'm going to start making this a usual disclaimer, but I do apologize for the sound in the video. I'm actually doing this voiceover from LA, so I don't have my usual supplies in front of me. My husband and I planned a birthday trip, and so we're busy running around LA and having a blast, checking out all the museums and just having fun, catching up with some friends as well. And so I'm kind of limited in the supplies that I have, because heaven forbid I got this done before we left. And it is what it is, and so thank you for your patience with my sound as usual. I managed to get my layout done in a reasonable time frame, and I got the video editing done. It's just the voiceover where I was having delays. January is a very busy month for us. It's my birthday. It's my son's birthday. He is having me galore, and he's doing really well. So it's a lot of time spent at the pool. We have birthday parties to plan. My mom was kind enough to come and watch the kids while we went away. And so a lot of cleaning had to be done. And it's just been a little bit chaotic life-wise as well. I can't believe it's only the middle of January and we're already having to make big life decisions. And so it's just been a little bit overwhelming, but you know, it's good to have options and choices. And so just trying to sit with that and feel lucky that we have these opportunities to choose from. So another new thing that I've been sharing is more behind the scenes, where you see how I'm illustrating and how I'm creating. In the past, I've relied heavily on doing my illustrations in Procreate and printing them out as stickers. But given the general state of the world in terms of AI generation and all of that nonsense, I thought it would be fun to share how I create my art, and maybe even to show you that I do create my own art, and as you can see, do my own lettering. I do share a little bit of my behind the scenes process for my hand lettered cover page, which you'll get to see shortly. This is where I decided to use my acrylograph. I'm using a gold acrylograph to color in the beard tray. I thought that was fun, and I decided to end up adding little bits of of gold throughout the layout. Also new for me is that I decided to use my gold acrylograph to do my tabs. Normally I like to have my tabs in different colors because it's fun, but I actually decided to go with just having the gold tabs. So we'll see how that works out. I'm already a little bit regretting it, maybe. I don't know. It's not that deep, but it is that deep. I don't know. It's how I feel, but yes, I went in and this is where I added in my gold acrylograph. After saying all that, since the acrylographs are so opaque, I can just go in and change the colors of the tabs if I wanted to, so definitely not that deep. I wanted to add some gold detail to the cups in the teapot to make them more interesting, but I also didn't want to have to deal with doing anything too small and fine because I didn't think the value was there. And I did these dots that I actually ended up hating, and I just went in later and made it solid gold instead of the dots. And so I was really a lot happier with how that turned out. And then as you can see, I cut my tabs and I like to have the rounded edges, so I'm using a corner punch, and then I just freehand the round edges of the tabs when I need to. Next up, I'm going in with my Lumos Pro Duo and I am outlining the illustrations. I like to do the outlining after so that there isn't any smudging. Most drawing pens I find are pretty good about smudging, but I didn't want to take any chances, so I left the outlining till I was done adding all of my color. The tip I'm using is a 0.3. This is from Tom Studio. I have partnered with them in the past and I absolutely love this pen so much. And I'm just going in and adding the little bits of detail and outlines to the illustrations. As you can see in the top corner, I'm sharing how I do my lettering, or rather the coloring of my lettering. I don't think I filmed any of the actual physical drawing of the letters, but I thought I'd share at least how I add color and just decorate the letters in general. These cover pages tend to take the longest. I put a lot of thought into it. I second guessed myself for a long time and I really dragged my feet on these hand-lettered pages, but it's such a great way to practice my hand lettering and practice some of my drawing, and as well as my shadowing and coloring in and just having fun in general. I'm now adding in washi to tie pieces together. The red washi was gifted from Tom Studio, and then the rest of it is just washi that I've had lying around forever. I'm going to do my PSA to use your stuff because washi will lose its stickiness or get this weird stickiness that ends up tearing the pages or causing, just general unpleasantness. So definitely get to using those because there'll always be more washi. And I speak from experience because Archer and Olive keeps coming out with super fun washi, and so I just have a ton of it now and I really need to be better about using it, and I know I'm not alone. I'm now grabbing a white jelly roll and adding a little bit of highlights to my lettering and my illustration. It's just something fun that I like to do. When I was learning to do modern calligraphy, it was so second nature just to add that in because it was such a fun, interesting detail. And so whenever I get the chance to do it, I go ahead and do that. If you want to see more of my lettering process and how I letter in Procreate, let me know down below. I'm perfectly happy to share. I don't believe in gatekeeping, so I just want to make sure that I'm sharing what you're interested in seeing. So let me know down below. My next layout is my calendar setup. My calendar page is a similar layout to last month, where I have a notes section for the individual weeks on the right-hand side of the page. I do find this so useful. And one more thing, the pen tip I'm using here is the 1.0 sized pen tip. And this, again, is a Tom Studio Lumos pen. Adding in my lettering with the Tombow, and of course, I'm not going to do a layout and not include stamping. I'm using a Studio L2E set to do the stamping of my days of the week. When I'm doing stamping like this, I will use the middle letter of the word and I will stamp it in the middle, and that way I'm able to align the words in the middle of the block. And that's what you saw me there. And I've mentioned in previous videos that I kind of like to play a game where I only touch the letter once. So I touch the letter S once, N once, and so on and so forth. I'm adding in an illustration of a teacup with laurel just to tie in the theme from the cover page. And then I have a plate of sandwiches next to the teacup. And I'm going in with my Tombows and just adding the layering. Again, I kept this in the video so that you could see how the Tombows layer and how easy they are to use and blend in, especially on the thicker paper like the Archer and Olive. Last month, I really loved how my fonts and my stamps came together to create this cohesive theme. I'm not feeling that same cohesion this month. I feel like the stamp set that I chose doesn't quite match the theme, but I think in the end it worked out, especially when I continued to use that stamp set throughout the layouts. And so overall, I'm actually happy with how that turned out. And as you can see, my cat was very involved in this month's setup. She had a lot of opinions and wanted attention, so you'll see her come in and out. Just like I did with my cover pages, once I was done adding in my color and adding in my shadows, I went in with my Lumos and just outlined the illustrations just to give them a bit more definition. And I apologize for my full-on head and my dirty hair. I just wanted to see and make sure where I was adding in the gold. I find the gold to be very reflective, and my lights, while they are great, sometimes they can be blinding and difficult to see where I've put lines, which is why you will see my head so much, especially if I'm showing you how I illustrate. As always, I'm adding in the borders to my pages. I can't stop. If I don't add borders, it doesn't look finished. It doesn't look ready. And so I'm always adding borders to my pages. And then as well, I've started adding in the gray lines. It's just easier to write on, especially when you're in a hurry, and it's easier to differentiate between the lines. So I'm cutting in my tabs, and as I mentioned earlier, I do like having the rounded edges. I round out the edges of my tabs manually and then use a corner punch just to round out the edges of the page. It's very quick and easy and almost looks like the tabs were there to begin with. I used a paper punch to make tabs for my journal, I believe, in my October 2024 setup, and it was okay. I didn't like it quite as much as I like cutting the tabs into my page, so I think I'll continue on with that. And then, of course, I was very proud of myself to use a finger snap to get all my stamping done. I like to show you my stamping and how I work through my stamping, but I feel it gets a bit repetitive, and so I definitely wanted to speed that up for you, but also make it a bit more fun. So my monthly overview page was redesigned last month. I decided to add in a monthly habit tracker as opposed to the weeklies that I was doing in previous setups. In January, I didn't use it as much, but again, it's a process in building it into my routine, so keep going for February. And I wanted to add in an element to tie this page into the rest of the layout as well and the theme. And so I just added the floral. I didn't have it in me to draw another sandwich or anything like that. I wasn't feeling too confident in my skills, and you'll see why in my layout for the first week. But I'm going in and adding the highlights and a little bit of shadow, and then that page is ready to go. I'm now working on the first week of February, which will be probably the week that I publish this or the week after I publish this video. I've kept this layout more or less the same for most of 2024. The only changes I tend to make to this layout are colors and tying them into the theme. For January, I did make a difference. I took out the habit tracker, I made the to-do list bigger, and I added in a little notes section. I'm not finding I used that notes section very much in January. If anything, I used it as overflow for my to-do list, so we'll see what I decide to do in March. But for now, I'm just going to keep going with the notes section. Now, you might be wondering what that blob in the corner next to the to-do title is. That's supposed to be a scone with the cream and jam. The red Tombow was maybe a little bit too red as opposed to the more purpley jams that I'm used to seeing. But fun fact, and I'm going to put a picture in here for you, we were having breakfast at a cafe in LA and they gave us jam and the jam was red and I almost squealed in excitement because I was beating myself up over how dumb a scone with jam looked because it was so red, but no, it's a thing and I'm so excited. So I'm going in and outlining my lettering and I put in the pink dots to put the dates in. I could have stamped the dates in, but I didn't, so here we are. And showing you that I do erase my pencil lines, not always, but I do on occasion. This is my layout. Normally I would complete the entire thing and show you. I started running out of time, so I only did a portion. I will be doing my month in review page and I'll be sharing that over on socials. But for now, I'm going to touch on my ratings for my layout. Okay, so let's take a look at my surprise egg versus what I did with it. As I've mentioned, this was actually super challenging. My initial idea was something that I'm actually hoping to do later, so I stayed away from that. But this was my thinking. So for the coffee grinder is being represented by the teapot. The side table is being represented by the table for the high tea. The fan is being represented by the fans in the background. And then the bento box is the different items on the high tea trays like go into a bento box. And then of course the sandwich press. Now granted, these are pressed sandwiches, but my sandwiches are down there. Okay, so my ratings for February. For interpretation, I'm rating myself quite high on this because given what I had to work with, I thought this was a really fun way to bring all of these items together. So while I said there were no rules, I didn't technically have to bring everything together. I thought I did a pretty good job of this. Now, in terms of execution, I really don't like it. I don't know if it's the color palette, I don't know what it is, but this is definitely not my favorite setup. So for execution, I give myself about a 6. Color palette, it does tie into Valentine's, but again, not my favorite. So again, I'm going to give myself a 6. For materials that I chose to use, man, the Tombows were so easy to use. I forgot how easy they are to use. I did have one acrylograph, which was easier to go around the teacups where I ended up doing something I didn't like. So I'm going to give my materials a 9 out of 10. And then overall rating for the theme, I don't know, I'm going to give myself a 6. Like I said, not my favorite, but I do like how I interpreted the theme and I thought it was outside the box. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. And if you're feeling up to it, let me know how you would rate my interpretation of the theme, my execution, the color palette, the materials I used, and the overall rating. Just be a little gentle. It's my first time putting myself out there like this. So, but yeah, let me know down below. And I will see you in the next one. For more bullet journal content, make sure to check out one of these 2 videos below. I'll see you over there.